Hi there, I'm Margie Holmes, clinical psychologist, educator. This week's episode in Ask Margie is all about. So let's begin our private session, shall we? From Elena CM. Whenever I break up with my boyfriend of 4 years, we always end up together again after 2 or 3 months. Love po ba yun? Hindi, Elena, this is not love. I mean, it could be, but usually if you've broken up, that means that there was a reason for breaking up, and to get back together again after 3 months, and not just at one time, but several times after a 2-3 month break, means that there is something that's not resolved. Which is why you always get back together again. And then when you get back together again, nag-aaway na naman kayo, there might be something there that really cannot be worked out. So the reason people get back together again is not necessarily love. In fact, in my clinical experience, it is more for other reasons rather than for love. It could be because of need. Akala mo, sino pang magmamahal sa akin? So siya na lang, no? It could be out of jealousy or a sense of ownership. Even though I don't want him anymore, I don't want anybody else to have him. You know? So what I would suggest, it does not work all the time, but what I would suggest is, if you break up with him and hindi mo matiis na magsama na hindi na kayo magsama forever and ever, then at least give yourself 6 months or 7 months before you get back together again. Kasi minsan, alam mo, pagsasanay lang yan to not have your boyfriend or girlfriend with you when you were so used to having him all the time. So maybe if you give yourself some more breathing space, 6, 7, 8 months, it will be easier for you. You know, it's like a sugar rush. You know, in the beginning, you could be addicted to sugar, so you can't live without it. But once you wean yourself, then it is easier to do so. This may be the same with your boyfriend. You know, you need a little more time than 3 months to wean yourself from this. 6 months will probably make it much easier to separate completely. Okay? Second question. I broke up with my boyfriend of 10 years a year ago today because he gave in to family pressure and had an arranged marriage. Even when he didn't want to, I cut off all communications with him and even blocked him from Facebook the day he got married. Good for you. Anyway, I felt so hurt and betrayed because I put my faith in him to be man enough to stand up to his parents. Except that he didn't, right? I heard through most of our mutual friends and barkada that he is still always talking about still being in love with me, even if he already got married. And he also told them that he hasn't been intimate with his wife. I know he is trying to get this message to me through them. How can I move on if he is always doing this? First, let me answer that, okay? Because you have so many very good questions, okay? You can move on even if he does this by seeing him for what he is, which is a weasel and a bullshitter. You know, all he does is talk. Talk is cheap. For 10 years, he's been talking to you, telling you that he loved you. I'm sure that you're the only girl he's ever loved, that he cannot imagine living with anybody else. I mean, this all sounds familiar, doesn't it, Anonymous? And yet, when push came to shove, he allowed himself to be shoved by his parents, right? So just remember that when it comes to him, talk is cheap. He hasn't followed it with action. And even now, this is all he's doing. And he doesn't even have the guts to tell you directly. Of course, you're very smart not to talk to him. And that's why he's telling it to your friends. Okay? So just remember that. And I hope it will not take so long then. Okay, to break up with him, it will not be so difficult to stay the course that you've been on. I have made myself busy with work and traveling to avoid thinking about him. Pinaghihirapan ko ba ang sarili ko na mag-move on by suppressing anything that has to do with him? No, Anonymous. In fact, you have the best idea. See, what happens is, when you don't see each other for a long time, and then you hear little bits of information about him, then tataas na naman ang pagnanasa mo, ang longing mo para sa kanya. So the sooner you say, no more, wag na, the easier it is for you to break up with him, you know, later. Kasi kung makinig ka sa kanya, you've heard already all the things he says. It's self-serving justification, no? Parang ang sinasabi niya, ba't ka ba magseselos? I don't sleep naman with my wife. Is he dumb or is he dumb? He thinks that he's been with you for 10 years, but you will forgive the fact that he married someone else. You will forgive that fact porket binola ka lang niya na, okay, I married it, okay, my money is her money, okay, I'll probably have children with her, but let me reassure you that I'm not sleeping with her. It's a little hard to believe. Anyway, number 3, Pat de Macleod asks, how will you handle a partner that just disappeared after 12 years without a trace, with no contact at all, and yet he's still around? Tama ka, Pat. Mahirap na mahirap talaga ito. I think this would be difficult for anyone who has gone through what you have been through, because all of us need closure. However, some people need closure more than others do. And some people need a more formal kind of closure, which perhaps you need. And okay lang yan as long as you know it. Because in a way, if you think, alam mo, 12 years, hindi ka na tinawagan, hindi ka na sinulatan, I don't know, hindi ka binigyan ng mensahe through a homing pigeon or whatever, kung after 12 years, hindi pa niya ito ginawa sa'yo, that's already telling you something. It's time to close the book and leave, no? And leave him. I mean, leave your heart, close your heart to him. But mahirap ito, and as I say, some people seem to need a formal closure. And a lot of times, this may have to do with your past relationships with growing up, no? But since, this is not a therapy session, and the most I can do for you perhaps is to recognize that you may need closure more than others, because after 12 years, if you didn't need so much closure, you would just say, end, chugi, right? But because nga you keep on hoping or you want to know what happened, I think the best thing to do is to have your own ritual of closure. So in case you're tempted to think, baka he still wants me, but hindi lang niya alam ang address ko, kahit na hindi ko naman binago yung address ko, then you will remember, no, I already said goodbye to him, tapos na. Okay? Number 4, Mr. Confused asks, I don't believe in long-distance relationships, and my girlfriend wants to pursue a career outside of the country. Nothing concrete yet, but she is actively applying for a job. Her chances are good, but I want to stay here. I told her the only solution is to break up. Do I wait for her to leave before we break up, or do we do it now? Di ba parang sayang if I stay pa when I know it's not gonna work anyway? I love her, but, okay? So, I think you already know the answer to Mr. Confused. It is so clear when you say, hindi ba sayang if we still stay together, even though we know we're going to break up. Since you know already this will happen, I think the sooner you break up, the better, right? The better for you, because you've decided this is what you really want to do. You're not all that confused about it, at least as far as you're concerned. Maybe you're confused about what the best way is to handle it for her, right? And, I think that if you break up with her early, who knows, maybe she'll find someone else in the Philippines who is willing to wait for her, who does believe in long-distance relationships. But even if she doesn't do that, the sooner she is over you, the easier it will be for her to work in the States, not long after you, and maybe find someone else there. So, Mr. Confused, I hope that you are no longer so confused about what to do with yourself and what to do with her. Parang, since you've already packaged your relationship and said goodbye very gently and lovingly because you love her, maybe you can help her, you can show true love for her by making it easier for her. Okay? Now, Teddy says, I'm always looking for passion and intensity in my relationships. When it's lukewarm and things feel too boring, I question if what I have is love. So I think about breaking up with my boyfriend. What stops me is I know I love him and he grounds me so well. But I also ask myself if I am just settling for less drama that is common in my past relationships. I miss it though. I miss the intense kind of romance. And I a fool to consider breaking up with him? No, You are not a fool, Teddy, for considering breaking up with him. You are not a fool for considering all sorts of possibilities and wondering or weighing the pros and cons of action as opposed to another. However, I think it is astute of you to know that you seem to have this need for novelty, and it may be a little bit more than for other people. It may be a little more extreme for you, or you may need it so much so that if you don't have it, you are willing to give up a good relationship. So